EIBs are also this is the short for Enterprise Interface Builder. We're going to see what EIB is all about. We're going to look at the EIB components. We're going to look at both type of EIBs, inbound and outbound. So what is an enterprise interface builder? So we use the EIB to build simple inbound and outbound integrations between Workday and external endpoints. So EIB has a set template. It's data format provided by Workday for the particular task that we would like to run, either for inbound or for outbound. So EIB gives you a framework to build your own integrations based on your unique business needs. First type of EIB is inbound or import data. And whenever we talk about the direction, either inbound or outbound, we have to keep in mind that we're talking about Workday tenant and the direction to and from the tenant. So whenever we say it's an inbound EIB, it means that we are loading data into Workday. Whenever we say that we have an outbound EIB, we are taking data from Workday and sending it to the outside world. So some examples of inbound EIB, which is uploading data into Workday by using like import accounting journals into Workday from an Excel spreadsheet that you provided as an attachment. Another example could be import data into Workday from an Excel spreadsheet to perform bulk business process. Example, hiring a group of employees or requesting mass compensation changes. Another example could be transaction for expense credit cards from a credit card issuer. You can then process a transaction in Workday expenses. Outbound EIB, or sending data, exporting data from Workday tenant to an external party. So you can export data from Workday into various formats such as CSV, Google data, JSON, RSS, text file, or Workday XML formats. And you can send it to external endpoints by using various protocols such as Amazon AS2, which is a data storage. You can send it via email. You can send it via SFTP, FTP, secured socket layer, or HTTP SSL. So these are the protocols that are supported by Workday to create a transaction method for an outbound data. You can export, example is you can export all active employees from Workday XML format and send it to an external endpoint within SFTP. You can export employee hours and billing rates from Workday in CSV format and send it to an external endpoint with SFTP. You can export employee headcount and contribution data from Workday in CSV format and send it to a life insurance provider by email. So the requirements could be many and various, but depending on the business requirement that you may have, you can have both either or inbound or outbound EIBs that you can import it to Workday or export out of Workday. Let me build up on the last example that they have given for outbound. Like if the company that we are working with provides benefits to their employees, such as in the US, you can have, say, Prudential life insurance, you can have dental, vision, medical coverage, you can have 401k, you can have, say, savings account, you can have children policy, you may have short-term life insurance, long-term life insurance, and so on. So if your company offers those plans, then your insurance provider would need information from your company for the workers that they're covering or providing insurance coverage to. And if Workday is being used as a benefits management tool, Workday has an entire module to manage that. So if people are enrolling in Workday for their benefits enrollment towards the beginning of the year, and during the year, they make changes to their benefit plans, such as a life event happens, somebody gets married, somebody has an addition in the family. Um, Unfortunately, somebody may have lost someone in the family. Uh, such changes keep on happening during the life cycle, during the year for that employee. And then that information needs to be shared with your benefit provider. Now, one way of doing it is, you can call your benefit provider and let them know that from the company, the benefits administrator can let them know that, okay, this is a change that happened. Please take care of it. Second option could be an email that, here's the list of people during this month that has had changes, and, kindly update your system. Third option could be you could have an outbound integration from Workday where you are monitoring and capturing all the changes of all the employees within your company and then sharing the data on a scheduled basis. Like every 2 weeks or every 1 week, send the data set to your benefit provider for all the changes that are happening within the company for the covered employees. I hope this example makes sense. If you have any questions around this example, please feel free to ask. Moving on. So what are the EIB components? Workday represents the integration as an enterprise interface, which you build and configure before integration is ready to launch. So you can design an EIB by using a wizard design method. You can create simple inbound or outbound integrations in a few steps with a wizard, which guides your configuration with appropriate options based on the data flow. EIB has three components. First is a get data. This component can indicate the Workday receives data from external source, such as a spreadsheet of a budget or the location of that data, for example, a specific URL or an FTP site. The data that the integration extracts from Workday example being a specific custom report. So the first bullet point is for inbound when we are importing data into Workday. And the second bullet is for outbound when you are using an advanced report or a custom report, and then you have to send the data to somebody else. The second part and the third part is transformation and delivery. So this component converts the data into a format that Workday or the receiving external endpoint can understand. So when you're doing an inbound, it has to be in a specific format that Workday understands the data that you are going to import into Workday. And when you are doing an outbound EIB, you have to make sure that Workday is sending the data in a required format that your endpoint or your partner or your recipient can understand that data. Generally, those outbound EIBs are received by a secured FTP like SFTP or even by email as an attachment. But then that attachment needs to be processed by a system. And that system would have their own specification that, okay, I need the employee name first, then the employee ID first, second, then I need their hire date, then I need their management level, then I need their benefit election state, I need their dependent information, then I need the dependent details, uh, dependent's age. Then comes the contribution part that, okay, how much is the employee contributing, how much is the employer contributing for that particular benefit, and so on. So it needs to have a specified standard or flow of data and which format that data needs to come or be sent to your partner or vendor to be able to understand and interpret that data and load it into the system in the required format. So this discussion, understanding and design and development of the EIB part is quite important. Unless you and your partner or your provider are not synced on the format and the content specification of the EIB, it may not work. Now, Workday provides some delivered transformations within the platform, but you can also create your own transformations if need be. And what are transformations? Like anytime you get the data, export the data out of Workday, it will be in Workday XML format. But for example, your recipient or your partner needs the data in CSV format or JData format or JSON format or RSS format. With a few simple steps while configuring the EIB, we can set up these transformations quite well. And Workday does that pretty well and reliably. In case it's a absolutely customized format that is not available in the delivered transformation within Workday, you can even create your own transformations as well. We'll have a look at it while we're creating the EIB. The third is the delivery. This component defines how Workday either imports data in case of inbound EIB into Workday or exports data to an external endpoint, for example, email, SFTP, or any kind of web services that the vendor may expose or provide us to connect to that area. So the transformation and the delivery method is discussed and designed between ourselves and our third-party provider or our consultant or our recipient. So what are outbound EIBs? Prerequisites: determine the data source, web service, or custom report that best fits your need. For example, as we were talking about benefit integration, you need to have a format or a custom report that captures all the new enrollment and changes for your employees' enrollment into your benefit plans. For example, if I go back to the tenant, say benefit census, effective date today. So I'm going to select US hourly and salaried employees. So here you can see the construct of this report, where there's employee ID, their SSN, legal names, address, state, postal code, their hire date, their birth date, their gender, job profile, annual base pay. And then they have the enrollment details like basic life, group life, commuter spending, dental care FSA, EAP, gym, healthcare, legal, long-term disability, medical, short-term disability, vision, voluntary AD&D, voluntary supplementary life. And next is all the provider details as to who is the provider for those plans. What is the coverage type? EE plus family is eligible employee plus family. So if a person has a family and they would like to have dependents enrolled as well along with themselves, they can also provide the dependent details like Megan McNeil, Pat McNeil, and for some kind of membership, such as short-term disability or voluntary life, you would need to define your beneficiaries, that in case that person is no longer there in the world, who is going to be the beneficiary for that plan. Here we can see for basic group life, it's Pat McNeil as the beneficiary. For voluntary AD&D and voluntary supplemental life, again, it's going to be Pat McNeil. So this is a kind of data set for every individual employee that may be needed by your benefit provider. For example, we don't see the dependent details here as well, like their social security, their date of birth, their age, when were they added in the plan, and such things. So all the columns, all the data that is needed has to be discussed and decided between yourself as an HR or benefit administrator or integration administrator and your provider as to what information they need and in which format. So web services, you can select a public outbound Workday web service operation, or you can use a custom report like the one that we just saw, the benefit census, and use that as your data source for your outbound EIB. So when setting up an outbound EIB, these is a guideline or steps that one should follow, like create a data source for the outbound EIB. When creating a custom report, enable as a web service checkbox, create security proxy to grant report access. So you have to create accessibility for your partner to be able to access the report from your tenant, either as a service center representative. Service centers are people who are not employed by your company, but you need to give them access to Workday on a very limited scale. So they're able to log in into Workday from outside and able to access the data for which the security has been granted. So web services, set up a launch parameter for web service data source. We'll look into it when we're setting up the EIB. Set up outbound EIB integration. Also, you may need to give the grant the integration get and put access to the integration event security domain if it's not already given, and then grant integration or external endpoint access to Workday. So let's try to create our outbound EIB integration. So in order to do that, first we need to access a task, say create EIB task, and select outbound. So I run the task create EIB, and I can select outbound and say EIB CT benefit census outbound. Now, your naming convention can be different for your company depending on how the names of the integrations are set up. Some people would like to do it like, say, not EIB, but say INTSYS 0102 or something like this. So depending on how your company is set up and what's the naming convention policy within your company or the standard SOPs for that, you can use those SOPs to name your EIBs. So this is how the guided editor. So the name that we have created for the EIB, Workday will generate a specific ID for that EIB. I generally would not like to change this because this is unique within the tenant. So I'd like to keep it like that and say I can put a comment, outbound. Then I can either get the data from a custom report or a web service. Say web service could be get candidate data, get DSN data, for example, for DSN submissions, there's standardized templates available for sign-ons. This could be used for your single sign-on authentication, like Okta, like CyberArk. If you're connecting your Workday with single sign-on services, Say get Workday account logins, account sign-ons. So depending on the use or your use case as to what you need to do, if you need to get workers data, you can use the web services, but generally, I would use the custom report because when I need to send data, either I can use a generalized delivered web services from Workday, or I can use as a custom report. So I was thinking about using this benefit census. It's a standard report. I make a copy of this. Let's say ZT. I make a copy of this. And for example, if I'm working with one company, like one of the providers, then I need to apply a filter on this that I only send information about that provider only. Say I can filter on, say current benefit elections and benefit provider. So I believe I cannot do it from here. So let's go to sub filter. Say I select this current benefit elections as my business object. In the selection list, say I want to create this for, say, United Healthcare. Let's create a vision services plan. So now if I run this report, I will only see the employees that has were in the US and has vision plans only. Here you can see that the benefit provider is vision only, and I'll see all the employees who has a vision service plan. Make sense? Because I'm going to send it to vision service for all my employees that who are enrolled into a vision plan, then I only need to send them the vision services data only. Hence, I've made a copy, put a sub-filter on vision services plan so that when I extract the data from my tenant, I only send it or I extract it only for vision service provider. Make sense? So also I need to make sure that the web services are enabled on this report, which are not. So I need to enable them as well. Unless the web services are enabled on my custom report, I cannot pull it for integrations or EIBs. So I'll use the latest version for web services in my custom report unless it's defined by your partner or your provider. They would like to use, say, 36.0 or 35.2, whichever their system is supporting. So again, this is a discussion between yourself and your benefit provider contact point as to how you want to set up your EIB. Now, when I press OK, you will see that another column will be added after column heading override, which is currently not there. And now, because I've enabled web services, because we have more than one business object in addition to worker here in our business objects, so I need to add them in the group column heading below. So let's test the report. And here you will see that the first set of data is all about workers, but then the current benefit election group column heading for benefit elections has populated in a subsection. So whenever you have more than one business object in a report and you have web services enabled, the format of the report would change like this. And internally, you will have this additional column called column heading override XML alias. Now, for your custom report that you have created, it has to be unique for your each object and field combination. So employee ID has to be unique within this whole XML aliases, like hire date, birth date, gender, benefit type. So if there's similar fields that you may need, you have to ensure that there is the XML aliases are unique in this column for this particular report. You cannot have duplicate XML aliases within the same report. All right, so our report is ready to be used in the outbound integration. So let me go ahead and take a copy text, and then I can search for my report here. So on the get data, when I'm using custom report, I don't need to select anything else, like run as a system user. If this may be needed if you have to have privileged access to run the report, like a reporting administrator or anything like that, then you may select run as user. But when you are creating your outbound EIBs, it means that you have relevant permissions to create and execute EIBs. Next is a transformation. Here, currently, I'm just going to select new custom report transformation, and we'll later look at it as how we can use this transformation to make changes to our data when it's ready to be exported. The next step is the delivery of your EIB integration outbound. Now, if the recipient is within your Workday tenant, then you can select it as a Workday attachment. And in the user's inbox, it will land in their notification or their inbox folder that you have an attachment available. Please click here to download it. So they'll get it in either a CSV format or an Excel format or any other format that you would like to send it to them. But for now, we are going to use email, but we have other options as well, such as secured file transfer protocol, HTTP secured socket layer, file transfer protocol, which is secured with SSL. Then you have an FTP, you have email, you have AS2, or you have Amazon Simple Storage Service. If any of these options are not available and you already have an existing delivery method defined within Workday and you would like to use that, so you can use existing FTP method. So let's use email for now. So when I select email, the relevant template will open for email. Version. Now I can define a name of my report, say CSV. And here, preferably, I would not like to put any spaces in the name of the report. You can, but some of the systems may not accept it. Now, say for example, a document retention policy in days. I have to send this report, say, every Monday or every Friday. So at least I would like to keep it for 7 days within my system, but I would take another step ahead and I'll say I would like to keep it for, say, 2 weeks, retain it within the system for the report content. So what was sent out to the service provider. Now, additionally, if I need to create a file name sequence editor, say, for example, I would like to have a date or a sequence number, like for every count, there should be a number on it, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or I would like to use a dynamic file name. So let's select dynamic file name for now. And then I can say in my output, I can have CSV, HTML, Excel, or text. Because we are going to use CSV for this, so I'm going to say CSV. And then if I want to compress it, encrypt it using any certificates, I can do that. If I want to restrict it to a tenant that is, this report is only available in the production environment, then I can restrict this integration to that particular environment. And then I say I would also like to send it as an FTP, so I can click add, and a second delivery method can also be created for the same scheduled data. Next is review and submit. Okay, so for deliver, I wanted to keep it for not 2 days, but 2 weeks, let's say 30 days. So now the summary of my entire EIB creation for outbound, which is pretty straightforward when we're using the wizard, like we just did. And now our EIB should be created. So how do I search for my EIB? I'll have to type integration system and then the name of the EIB. And when I click on it, I can open my EIB interface. Now you'll see an error on the top right that integration system has an unencrypted transfer protocol. You must either enter payload with PGP, encrypt the payload with PGP, or request approval from security admin for the exclusion from encryption. For example, sending it to email address in a plain format is not recommended by Workday. But many of the providers don't have that infrastructure where they have secured server or FTP where you need to send the data. So many times you do need to send the data via email. So in order to fix this, because I'm also a security admin on this tenant, Logan is, so I can go to enterprise interface, related actions, EA enterprise interface, and then toggle approve unencrypted transport. So I click on this, it'll give me the main email address. I click on approve, press OK. And then the error will convert into an alert that yes, we have approved it, but now it's just an alert. It's not an error, so it will not restrict you to run the EIB. Now let's look at the details what we have configured. So from the get data section, we have selected our report. Transformation, we are using the standard custom report, new custom report transformation that we created. And then the delivery details. Who is it going to? Who is in CC? Who is it going from? And what is the subject of the report? Report name, file type, dynamic file name, document retention policies, 30 days, and so on. Now, as we selected dynamic file name, so we have to add some kind of dynamic assignment to the file name. How do we do that? So we'll go to, again, integration system, enterprise interface, configure dynamic file name definition. So let me copy this first. Oh, I believe Meghna has left. So I think let's continue our outbound today, and let's take a break after as soon as we've completed our outbound EIB type.
Yes.
And inbound, we can discuss it in the next session. So let's go to the related action button, go to enterprise interface, and now configure dynamic file name definition. So I'm not going to restrict the delivery to any platform because we didn't select it. So now we can create up to, say, 5 or 6 or 7 tags within our report. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the file name that I already had, and then I'm going to add a tag, say tag 1, and then I'm going to define the tag here. And either I can take a report prompt if I want to, say effective as of date, or if I don't want to use this, I can say tag 1, external field, say put today's date here. Whenever the report is running, put the day as of that day. Now, my file name would look like tag 1, then space, then ZT benefit census report vision.csv. Say I want to add a dash here as well. That's okay. And if I go back to my EIB, now my dynamic file name has been defined. It says yes. So now my outbound report, whenever it's sent as an attachment within the email, it will have a date dash then this file name as to when that file ran. Now we talked about transformation. So if we need to configure our transformation, we again go to enterprise interface and then configure transformation that we added as a new report, new custom transformation within our EIB. And for example, my provider would like to see the delimiter for the CSV as a semicolon, not a colon, or not a comma, or a pipe format, or this theta format, or say this format. So whatever the delimiter that they would like to see within the report for each field separator, I can add it here within my report or configure it to see it. Now there are a couple of settings, like some of the providers may need line feed for line ending. They would like to see a carriage return, or they would like to see a combination of carriage return and line feed. So I can define the line ending as well at the end of the data. Now for each column that is going in the report, what is going to be the heading of that column? What is the, if I need to fix the length of that particular column to a specific size, like say I would like the employee ID to be maximum 15 characters, I can set it up here. The prefix and suffix character of the data set for the employee ID, like this quotation mark open, then the employee ID number, then quotation mark again for the suffix character. So if I need to change these, I can change the value, say from this to say this, single quotation mark, or I would like to start with single quotation and end with double quotation, if I'd like to do that. And then the delimiter, say I would like to have a semicolon here, I can do that. So if I need to add any padding, say all the employee ID, I want to say it should start with ZT. Now you can do these prefixes, suffixes, column width, employee heading, override, say, or the padding. You can set it up for your each column within the entire transformation. Then after columns, you have the header section. If you need to include the header default, for example, header is going to have these information, the column heading override. So on top of your columns, or do you need the header information included in the data? You can select, or if you don't want to send the data, you can remove it from here. Similarly, in the footer, if you need to add, say, count of rows as to how many data is there, you can add a tag, create a tag, and add it here as well. Right, so let's press OK. So we have completed our transformation requirement as well. And now I can launch this EIB because I have my data source defined. We did our transformation. We selected our output method within our integration. And we have also created the dynamic file name sequencing. We have defined who it's going to be sent to and who is it going to be sent from and what is the subject of the particular email that we're sending. Let's go ahead and launch it. So I go to related actions button, go to integrations, and then launch or schedule. So currently we're not scheduling, we're just going to launch it for now. And then it'll give me the prompts that I had when I run the report. Say I'm going to use today's date, say 7th, benefit groups, say US. I don't want to restrict any last name or first name, and the filter is already in my report for Vision Services Plan. All right, so we are ready to run, and let's press OK. So now it has fired my outbound integration, so it's processing. So I can look at the details, the integration process, the event initiated by, initiated as, ran as, and then the get data details. This is a public services or web services URL for that report. The fields that are going within the report that we have selected the values for. Then the transformation, the delivery method, all those details would be here. So let's refresh this. So here we can see the status that it has been completed. If I look at the output, I will see that there's a text document which I can download. And say if I open it in a text file, say Notepad. So this is the format of the output delimited CSV file. So first is the employee ID, then comma, then social security, then comma, then legal dash last name, then comma, then legal first name, comma. So this is our delimiter. the commas. And below that, you can see all the employee data in line by line. Again, in the same format that has been defined or outlined in the top row.
So we always have this form, or do they have another form also?
It could be in Excel, CSV, like we discussed, JSON, XML, Workday XML, RSS. So this formation or the type of output is defined between you and your provider. So now if I try to open the same file in an Excel sheet, that becomes more humanly readable. So Excel basically what it does is all the delimiters, it separates them into columns. So again, you can see the name, it's the same file, CSV. I have not changed the format to Excel. But then this is more human friendly or human readable.
Okay, so which is the often used format in Workday?
CSV or
Okay.
Workday XML or JSON.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have verified that this is going to be my output. You may have gotten an email from this integration as well if the tenant may allow to send it to public email addresses. So you may have received an email, but let me check my email as well.
Yes, I received one.
Awesome. So we have fired the integration and you have received the data.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So now I am satisfied that my data set, I see that the data is there. Now I want to schedule it for a weekly basis. I go back to my integration details, go back to my integration system. And from here, I can go to integrations, again, launch or schedule and say, I would like to schedule it, say, on a weekly recurrence. So I select weekly. Again, so every week I want to get, say, but I cannot define today's date or the date that is today that I'm running for every weekly schedule. So what I can do is I can say determine value at runtime and say today. So whenever it is running the schedule that we are going to define further in the system, it will pick up that particular date. So I select the benefit groups. Then rest of the details, I want to use the system default. And the next tab I would like to go to is going to be schedule. Now in the schedule, the priorities say normal, runs every 1 week. Days of the week, say I would like to have it run on each Friday. Say start time, I would like to say set up at 9:05 a.m. I can set up the time zone that I would like to run the report on. Catch up behavior, if it fails, just run one more time. And then I can set up the range of the schedule. Say I would like to have it start from Friday, so I will start it from say Friday. And then say I can say 12/31/2021, end of the year. So end of the year, last Friday is going to be 12/31/2021. Great. So now I've set up a schedule and say let's end it soon. Say 09 or 10. So today it's going to start on 10. Say let's schedule it for say. So for this month, we will get 3 more reports within our email from this tenant, looking at the data and seeing what's going on in this report. So set up the schedule, put up the start date, put up the end date, and let's press OK. And now my schedule is set up within the tenant. So if I click on schedule, For this particular outbound integration, it'll run every Friday, 9:05 a.m. Los Angeles time, starting from 9/10/2021 till 10/1/2021. And if I click on additional details, I can see the scheduled next 10 launches at when it's scheduled at and how many times it has run already. So just run 0 on the schedule. We just ran it manually earlier. I can see the status of the schedule, that it's active, the run frequency, the schedule name, and say if I need to manage my schedule as well, I can go to the related action button, and then I can edit schedule recurrences. If I want to suspend the schedule, I can do that. If I want to delete the schedule, I can do that. And then if I need to transfer the ownership from say Logan to say somebody else within the company, set up the schedule and transfer the ownership so that they can manage it themselves, I can do that as well. So this is how you set up your outbound EIB.